In this video, we will have an overview of the user preferences in Blender. So here, when you go into Edit and go to Preferences, you will have the possibility to have a new window, and here you will choose your preferences for using Blender. Okay, so here you have different themes that you can choose, different tabs here. So by default it will come with the interface. You have I will not show everything, every little details of each parameters that we can change here, but I will just show you what is important maybe during the training, okay, and what you can change without make a big mess into your Blender. So here you can change the scale of the font, and it's quite useful. I mean, it depends. So for example, me, sometimes I use a bigger resolution in my screen and the font appears a little too little, so I can increase that, so it can be interesting. Line within will not touch it. The splash screen here can be enabled or not when you open Blender, okay. For the editor, we will just have a look at that one. For example, region overlap here, you can change here and have a full here interface, and when you remove and when you enable region overlap, it will just give you this and transparency behind, so give you more space for the 3D view, so it can be interesting, that one too. You have the translation. As this training is in English, it will not be useful, but for some people it can be sometimes useful. But I will recommend you to enable it with a translation, even if it's not your native language, because all the trainings and all the tutorials that we can find will be in English anyway. So here you have the text rendering with some option about all the text in Blender here, and same for the menu, but for this we will, except for the pie menu here, that can be interesting here. The pie menu, it's something like that. So for example, if I want to go into another mode, I can use tab, control tab, sorry, and control tab will give me some options here directly. So, or for example, Z will give me another pie menu here. With Z I can go to render, to wireframe, and to look depth, so it will give me all of these options here. So the pie menu will give you a quick access, very quick like that. I just have to do I enable the pie menu with Z, and then after I go to the left and I will go to wireframe, okay. So from solid to wireframe, Z right, Z left, Z right, Z left, and it goes very quick like that. So when you are used to all these pie menus, it can be interesting to use them. And here you have the possibility to manage them a little, the size of it and the animation and everything. Okay, so for the first, the interface here, it's there. For the themes here, you have the possibility to use some presets. By default you have a Blender Dark or a Blender Light here. I don't recommend you to make your own presets like that. It can be a little tricky after to see where your objects or everything, but you have the possibility to manage everything. Like for example, if you go into the 3D view, you go there here, and you can change here, let's say, the color of the wire here, okay. So if you go there and put the wire like that, okay, good, and that you have an object into object mode here, okay, and that you go to the right viewer here and enable maybe the wire, okay. So at the moment it's not maybe this parameter here, but yeah, you can see here the wire that now is in blue because I did change it. So I recommend you to keep all this by default, because after it can be a little tricky to manage, but you can create your own interface like that if you want, so your own theme, and after share it if you want. So if you are good at that, I prefer to stay with the classical one, let's say. Here we have the viewport, so here you can change, for example, if you want the object info to appear or the name of the view So you have the playback FPS if you launch the animation, everything. So all of this, it's about the viewport. By default, it's the same. We will not change anything there. For the lights here, everything is with the studio light by default. Here we will have how to manage the light and the studio light, but we can add some matte caps too if you want to add other matte caps into the list here if you want. So some matte caps, you can just download it, search into matte cap into Google, and you will have some results if you want to install custom matte caps in Blender. Now it's possible. And you have the same thing for HDRI. So remember, when you go into this mode, you have some maps around here, and these maps, it's HDRI's maps, and we will I will show you more about this during the lighting chapter, but for now you can just install new here if you want to. Okay, so it's there that you can manage these things here. Into the editing mode here, the editing tab, you will have the possibility to manage how your 3D cursor will be managed. And here, for example, for the white paint, here you will have different possibilities to use some custom colors and this. So here we change nothing. We just keep everything like this. For the animation, the same, we will keep everything like this. It can be sometimes interesting if you want the default interpolation, like the way it will move between two keys. Here you can manage this here, but except that we will just keep this like default. Okay. Into the add-ons section, so you will have a lot to we will have a lot to manage here. As you can see, there are a lot of add-ons that are available in Blender by default. Here, add-ons. What is an add-on first? An add-on in Blender, it's a little piece of software that will give you new options. So by default, they are not enabled, all are not enabled here, because it will make the software a little more heavy to work, and it will take some time to work. So it will use a lot of the computer RAM and everything. So what they do by default, they enable as less as possible. But for example, let's enable the add mesh here, bolt factory here. Okay, so if I enable the add mesh bolt factory now, into my add section, I will have into add mesh bolt. Okay, and I will just remove this cube here, and I can just, as I told, add a bolt here. Okay, and here into the bolt options, you will have the possibility to manage a lot of things. So add-ons are very powerful. We will not enable everything, we will not discover everything during this training, because it will take more than 30 hours, and this training will be already more than 30 hours. So for now, but we will discover some, and I will show you how to manage some that are really useful for everyday, for using Blender every day. So that's it. There you enable it, so you don't have to change to save anything. The next time you open Blender, it will be enabled. Okay, so take care to not enable everything, because after it can slow down a little Blender. Okay, so into the input value, you have the possibility to manage a little how the keyboard and the mouse interact, and the tablet and everything. So here you have the possibility to emulate the third button mouse with Alt, sorry. So if you don't have a third button here, you have the possibility to emulate the numpad. Okay, for laptops if you don't have a numpad. So here it can be there's two options here, can be very useful. For the navigation here, you have the possibility to do a turntable or trackball. Trackball, it's something really different. I really prefer turntable here. We will just disable auto perspective. So what is auto perspective? Let's go and have a little Suzanne here to show you that. So when I just into the side view, I come directly into orthographic, and then when I come back to the normal view, I come back to user perspective here. Me, I don't want that. I want that if I'm at orthographic view, I stay in orthographic view. So what I will do, if I just disable that, okay. So now if I go into orthographic view, I'm into the side view there, and I stay into orthographic now if I move, as you can see. And this is the behavior I prefer. So we will just disable here auto perspective there. So you have the possibility to zoom and to fly into the view. This we will not use it to, so not really interesting for us. For the key map, it can be interesting to come back. We will come back to the options we had into the splash screen in the beginning. The first time we did use Blender, select with left, select with right, okay. The space bar action. So me, I did choose play, I did choose search, okay, by default here. I would like here a tab for pie menu if you want. So the tab by default will be pie menu too. But it's not mandatory to use it. And here, that's it for this, okay. And you can change to how it will. You can change all the key map by default, so you have all the shortcuts that you can find in Blender, okay. And you can just change them, okay. So you search an action here, and if you want to change the key map, so you can just change it here. But I really recommend you to not do this too much during the training, at least, because we will use the default values as much as possible. After, you can customize everything yourself. Here for system, we have the cycles render device. So if you have an OpenCL device like a AMD card, or if you have a NVIDIA device, you will choose CUDA here. So what I will use my two GeForce GTX here. So I just enable them, and my processor, I will just not enable it. I like my processor to be free like this. I can use at least a little my processor and do something else during rendering sometimes. So, and yeah, I didn't see a lot of difference by using this. So I prefer to let my two cards here manage that. So for everything that is rendering, it's good to have good graphic cards, okay, if you do renderings a lot. For memory limit, you can just manage the undo step. So maybe by default you can increase it a little. If you are a beginner in Blender, it's good to have maybe 48. It will take a little more RAM, but at least you will have the possibility to come back easily. And you have the possibility here, where is that one? There must be an autosave value somewhere. It's here, to the save and load. You have autosave temporary file. So let's say for example, Blender crash or your computer shut down or whatever, Blender saves a temporary file every 2 minutes, and you can reload here by going there to go to file, recover, and autosave, and you will go into a list and you can recover your work like this. So it can be useful sometimes, even if for all the training I did record for now with Blender 2.8, I didn't have any crash, so it's pretty solid, even if it's still in beta, and it will be even more solid with the next release, so the full release after. So here, this is where you manage the temporary files here, okay, and for the file path, this one is interesting, and we will change things by default. So first of all, you will go to font, and in your computer you will have a font folder. So you will just find it. For me, it's in Windows, so it will be into C, Windows, font, okay, but it depends the operating system you have. For the texture, if you have a texture database, you will can just select the good folder and the right folder. Same for the sound, same for the scripts. If you do some scripting, but it's not the case for us for now. You can tell to Blender where it will render by default, so it can be interesting this to make a custom folder, for example, maybe in the desktop, to create a folder render like this, because by default it goes to the root of C, so it's not really useful, this one. And here one that is interesting, it's image editor. So let's take the image editor and I will choose Photoshop. So I will go into C, Program Files, Adobe Photoshop. I will search the X file. Where is that one? Photoshop.exe. Okay, and you can choose like that your image editor. So what it will change in the end, when you will use, for example, when you manage some textures or an external image into Blender, you will go into your image editor here. Okay, and if I open an image, for example, let's say, and I go into like something like this. Okay, let's say I will take this picture here. Okay, it's a picture I made a while ago. So you have this picture here, and let's say if you want to edit this into Photoshop directly, so you will go to Image and you will go to Edit Externally. And as you can see, Photoshop starts up itself, and it will go directly and open the image ready to do some transformations or edit or whatever. So let's say I go into edition here, and or I manage the curve with Control M. Okay, if it wants, please. No, it doesn't. Thank you, guy. And let's say if I want to edit, for example, my curve and maybe make something a little more contrasted like that, and I'm happy with this. Okay, so I just make a Control S and I just save this. And now if I come back to Blender, I just have to go into my image and reload, and as you can see, now I have my contrasted image. Okay, so I will come back and just not keep my image like that. So Control Z into Photoshop, please. Thank you. Control S again. Okay, and I come back to Blender and I can make a reload. And so it's a good way to use like that an external editor like this. You can make some changes very quick and reload the image very quick like that. So very useful one. You can use whatever editor you have into your software. It can be GIMP, it can be another software. So yeah, I just take the example with Photoshop because it's the one I use here. So that's it for Blender user preferences. You can see that there are a lot of things to manage a little, but yeah, as I told in the beginning, try to keep as much as possible the default values, so it will be easier after for you to learn Blender, especially if you are a beginner. So in the next video, we will go to chapter 2 of this training, and we will start to discover the object mode menu here.